Hi everyone, thank you for joining me again. Today we are going to make some crepe paper roses. So I've made peonies with you in the past and now we're moving on to roses. These ones will be made with some crepe paper I have purchased this time from Temu. I thought I'd give Temu, I'd give them a go with their crepe paper. So in their ad, they showed it as being textured crepe paper, and when you're making flowers you really do want the textured crepe paper because then you're able to stretch it out and mold the petals in the way that you'd like the flower to be shaped. So there are different grades or different levels of crepe paper. You've got your really smooth crepe paper or tissue paper that you can use for wrapping. You've got some that are a little bit more textured that you can slightly mold, and then you've got really thick textured crepe paper where you can make really detailed flowers. So from what I can see, this is about in the middle. Now, when I make my crepe paper roses, the first thing that I do is I grab my roll, I'll cut it in half. So I'll find the half, I'll cut it in half, and then I will start cutting out the petals. And the way that I do that is I unravel the whole roll. I fold it in half, fold it in half, fold it in half again until I get to a size about that wide. So there's my hand. You can kind of see about how wide that is. And I'll cut them into these rectangular shapes. Then the trick that I use is I'll grab a couple of these rectangular shapes, put them roughly together, and then I fold them in half. Because when you fold them in half, you can actually cut out a petal on one side, and when you flip it open, just like you probably did at school making those butterflies growing up, you open it up, and because you've cut it on that side, it's symmetrical. So how cool is that? And also cuts your time in half, because instead of doing one petal at a time, which is very time consuming, I mean, I've just done like 4 that quickly. With my rose petals, I'll cut them about this size and then I'll start molding them. When you're doing roses, you want a bud in the middle, so a nice tightly compacted bud, flower bud in the middle. And then after that, you can start building your petals on the outside to slowly start opening outwards. So for the middle bud, what we'll do is we'll grab a straw. This one is just a PVC small straw that I got from the cake store. You can get any straw really and use it. And sometimes I'll use styrofoam balls. If I don't have a styrofoam ball, I could get crepe paper or newspaper, scrunch it up into a ball and use that as the center ball of my flower. Or here I've got some leftover plastic balls that I used for a different craft project that I don't need anymore. So I'm just going to repurpose that. As long as you've got some hot glue and you've got everything ready to go, it doesn't matter because this will be completely covered. So what I'll do first is I will want to cover it just in case it seeps through. In case the petals don't cover it completely. And just to do that, you'll put a bit of hot glue around the base, and you'll see that my plastic ball is also linked up to a small wire there, just to give myself a bit of a handle. So when I pop this in the middle, I'm just going to bring up each corner and just dab it down onto the hot glue to make almost like a lollipop. And that hot glue that I've put around the base is going to keep it together. You don't need a lot of excess, so I would recommend you just cut that off. You don't want the stalk or the, what do you call that? The stalk of your flower being too thick, so that's why I would recommend just chop off the excess. And of course have a little rubbish bag close to you nearby just to keep your workspace clean. So now you can see I've got my ball covered, and you would never know that it was a plastic pink ball. So after that, I want the inner petals. The inner petals are going to be smaller than your outer petals, as you can see here. And what I've done is I've just taken my normal rectangles, folded it in half, and just cut it about halfway. And that creates, I'll show you how to do it, that creates a smaller inner petal. So folding it in half, cutting it on an angle. I don't use templates, I just use my eyes. So whatever looks good. The good thing about, and then you can see that I'm just stretching it outwards like I'm making a little cup. So the inner flowers will only need to, the inner petals will only need to be boat shaped like this. But yeah, the good thing about flowers is that they are all unique and beautiful in their own way. That's how God created them, and we should appreciate each flower in its own beauty. So that's why I don't use, excuse me, I don't use templates, because I believe every flower is unique and beautiful in its own way. And plus you're doing this by hand. So if something looks off, just go one step back, redo it until it looks right to you. Now that I've got my inner petals ready to go, I want to reinforce my stem, not stalk, stem. I want to reinforce my stem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my little wired stem into and glue into the PVC so that I've got something solid to hold it by. If I left it like this, it moves around too much. It's not secure enough for me to be able to maneuver all the petals around and secure it. So what I'll do is I'll just put a couple of dabs of hot glue around there, pop my wire in, keep it secure for a couple of seconds until that dries. This is a good thing about using a hot glue gun, because it dries very fast, so you don't really need to wait that long. Now with the inner petals, because I've got my ball, I've got something to wrap it around. If I didn't have my ball, I would be wrapping it around just like a straw, and it wouldn't have as much structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it about middle of the way. I'm going to give it a bit of glue on one side, because I want each petal to wrap around the next petal. So I've secured one side with hot glue. I'm going to open the other side. I'll pop some hot glue inside the other side. And with the second petal, I'm going to slide the second petal in so that it overlaps. And then, of course, opening up the first petal and securing it with a bit more hot glue. So now your second petal is secured. I want to place my third and last inner petal with a bit of hot glue and secure that in. And you'll see the more you do this, the faster you'll get at it and the more comfortable. Crepe paper flowers might be a little bit daunting. It might be a bit, you have a look at these tutorials that look insane and you think you could never do it, but really it's not even that hard. I think it just is a matter of having somebody explain it the easy way, and then you think to yourself, is that it? It's not actually that hard. It's actually very fun. I'm going to twist the bottom to give it a bit of security at the bottom, and on the inside I'm just going to manipulate the little petals until I'm happy with what I'm seeing. So now I've got my inner petal, my inner bulb. I want to start stretching out the outer petals. So with the rectangles that I've got, I'm going to cut out my petals, and then I'm going to stretch them into a boat or a cup shape to begin with. And then one of the sides, I usually use the right-hand side, I want the petal to flip outwards. And then with the left-hand side, I want the petal to flip inwards. And then as I stack my petals inside of each other, it will create more of a rose structure. So I'm going to stretch the inside to make a cup shape first. So I've got a cup shape there. And then I'm just going to wrap this around my finger and manipulate the crepe paper to give an outwards appearance. And now this one I want to come in, so I will do it the other way. And the more you work with crepe paper, the more you'll be comfortable with how much to pull at it, because a lot of times if you go in too rough, you'll just tear the crepe paper because it is quite thin. So you'll have your petal coming in and also going out with the boat shape, with the cup shape on the inside. So we've got that there. That's what we want. So going cup shape inside, out, and then this one will come in. There we go. All right. So we've got a couple going here, and now we're going to start layering our rose. As I said, I want the rose petals to be overlapping each other as I go along. So what I'll do is you can either glue the petal or glue the this first. It's up to you. I'm just going to quickly seal these petals, make sure that they are nice and secure, and then I'll go in. So I'm only putting a small amount of hot glue, and I'm only putting about from here to here. I don't want it all the way up, and I don't want it here so that it just flops open. So I want, you know, what is that, like 5 centimeters or something. And now I'm going to start overlapping. So this petal comes out, I want to tuck this petal in. And that's basically what you do the rest of the way. So it is just repeating the same thing, tucking in. And as you go, you want to make sure that you keep an eye on the inside of the flower so that you're happy with the outcome. If you're not happy with it, quickly remove the petal and readjust. It's better to fix any petals as soon as you notice that it doesn't look right, rather than waiting till the very end when there's not really much you can do about it. All right, so we've got our first layer there, and you can see the rose is starting to take shape. And the more you put on it, the prettier it will be. You'll see that as you're layering your petals, you'll have little open slips, and that's where you will be putting your next layer of petals. So exactly the same thing that we'll do. Bit of hot glue there, tucking it in. As long as it's overlapping, you'll be all right. And just continue putting extra or reinforcing the flower with extra glue as you go along to keep the flower secure. So for this rose, we're not using floral wire. I do like to use floral wire from time to time, especially with the bigger flowers, because I feel like it gives the petals the ability to be manipulated once it's on a stand. So if each petal has a wire going through it, you're able to open and curve the petal as you wish at the very end. But I usually just worry about that with bigger flowers where there's the risk of the petals flopping down. So because this flower is not too big, I'm not going to worry about that. I find that they stay together just fine. So again, I'm going to make a few extra petals. If you do start folding your petals and you've got a couple that tear, that break, you can, like, just like that was not on purpose, but there you go. You can either save these for your inner flower, your inner bud, if you are shaping your petals before you put the flower together, or in this case, I can see the line is straight, so I'm just going to chop it down. Because you're overlapping the petals, you won't notice. The issue is if you tear up here, that will be noticeable, so I'd probably leave that petal. I'll put that petal aside. But because we've got down the side, you can easily, when you're doing your overlapping, you won't know. But yeah, if you are shaping your petals first and then putting your flower together, I would save this for the inner flower, the inner bud. So you don't need to waste any material, any petals. You can always find a way to use it. If you want, you can put multiple petals together and stretch them out together, especially the cup shape at the beginning, because I find that there's not really much tearing if you're just doing the middle part. It's when you come to the outside where the tears happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a few more of those petals on the flower. And yeah, these flowers, they can be put on a larger PVC pipe, and that PVC pipe can be curved and shaped by having hot water run through it. And if you run a whole kettle of hot water through the pipe, you obviously hold it with mittens or with a towel or something so don't burn yourself. You run the hot water through, it becomes softer and pliable, and then you can let the water seep out, quickly put it on the floor, bend it, and hold it there for like 20 seconds, and then it cools down and hardens up again. So this is PVC pipe. You can get it from the hardware store, from Bunnings. And then you're able to make those curvy stalks or curvy stems and then have your flower. You don't have to just have straight, rigid stems. So you can do that. And then I usually make the base of my flower, I usually make it out of some plank of wood that I cut into a circle. I drill some holes in it, and then the holes that I drill in it will be the same size as the PVC pipe that I purchased, so that the PVC pipe can just slide into the hole. And then on the bottom, I'll put artificial grass, which you can get from Cheapest Chips reject shop, $2 store. And it's really cute if you find some toadstools, some little mushrooms, red and white mushrooms, and you hot glue those on the grass and do like a little fairy garden at the bottom. I find that the little kids just love it. Put a little Tinkerbell toy down there on the base. That's really cute as well. So yeah, as you can see, it's just a matter of shaping the leaves, gluing them on, creating a resemblance of a rose. I think using templates is good when you're starting out if you're not confident, but after a while, like after doing so many giant flowers, you become so used to the shape of the petal that you just are able just to cut, done. So it's all a matter of repetition, isn't it? But yeah, definitely great. These are definitely great for parties or, you know, bridal showers. If you've got a library or an event or a photo shoot. I mean, they're so versatile. If you've got an assembly, at school, these are really cool on the stage. You can do them different shapes, different colors, but the technique is pretty much all the same, isn't it? Cutting petals, sticking them on. I find that some of the tutorials out there on giant flowers, for me, they just seemed really complicated or really intimidating. That's the word. And then I started making the giant flowers myself, and then I thought, this can definitely be explained in a much easier way. So you see, the more layers you put on, you're starting to form that structure of the rose that you're looking for. And because you've bent the petal inside and out, like inwards and outwards, you're creating a bit of movement in the petal. It's not just all rigid, perfect curves. So yeah, this can be a lot of fun. It doesn't have to be stressful, and it doesn't take long either. If you've got a bit of time in the evening, I find, as like a little relaxing project, it's really fun. So yeah, you can see there, it's really starting to take shape. So let me go ahead. I will cut the rest of these out. I will glue them on, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how I work on the bottom layer and the base. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have finished putting the petals on. I just wanted to show you how the final layer of petals are shaped and placed on. So as we were with the other petals making a little cup shape to begin with, so a little pocket there, and then we were folding one side of the petals outwards and then one side of the petal inwards. For all these outer petals, we're actually going to fold both sides of the petals outwards. So we'll go ahead and wrap them around our finger to create that movement around the petal. So you can see I've got the cup shape, and then both edges are actually pointing outwards. So this will be only for the outer petals. And then again, just like the rest, we're going to put a bit of hot glue and overlap each petal. So now looking where I was last, and then overlapping and dabbing down. So now we've created this gorgeous layered petal rose with movement because of how we've manipulated the petals. So once that's done, let's pop it upside down, and we want to make the green leaves for underneath. So how we're going to do that is we're going to grab our crepe paper, and you'll notice with crepe paper there's a grain. So with crepe paper, the grain usually goes up this way. And if you want to be able to manipulate and move and stretch out the crepe paper, you want to be cutting upwards so that you can stretch outwards. Because the grain is going up, you're able to stretch outwards. So what I've done is I've cut a strip. I'm going to fold it in half again, give that a snip just so that we can get roughly the same size petals. Just like leaves, sorry. Just like the petals, we'll fold it in half. Now with the leaves that we're putting on the bottom of the flower, we have a slightly different shape. So what we do is, instead of like the petals go all the way up and then do a slight curve, we're actually going to do almost like a moon shape. So coming up and going down. So it's more of a moon shape, whereas the petal was a bit higher there and then came across. And then once you open that up, it should look something like this. And with the stretching of the leaves, all we do is just gently pull it apart, like pull it outwards. And then, so you've got that little cup shape, and then you just want to bend it along your finger. So it kind of looks like a little spoon, because this part will go over there and you want a bit of movement. So there you go. We're folding it out, we're folding it over. And again, another thing that you do quite a few times, you get so good, you can do it with your eyes closed. All right, so now that we've got our petals, we're going to start gluing them on. And how I found it the easiest for me is to glue on the actual flower. So with this one, I'm not going to glue the leaves. I'm going to glue the flower. Grab my leaf and put it in place. And just like the petals, we're going to overlap. So we've got another dab of glue there. And again, overlapping the leaf. When you think of a flower, you think of the stages of bloom, of how it blooms. So it first starts off like a very tight bud, all over the leaves, the petals are all overlapping each other and in a tight bun. And as it blooms, it slowly starts stretching outwards. That's why we're overlapping, because we're trying to picture how the flower started. And then also, if you overlap your leaves and you overlap your petals, you get a more dense color. If everything is open, kind of like a poppy, because the poppy has 4 or 5 petals and it's very open, you don't get that concentration of color like you would with this one. So we've gone ahead and we've put our leaves in an overlapping fashion. Now, what do we do with the stem? We're going to cover it. And how we cover it is because the grain in the crepe paper is going up. So what I mean by grain is, I'll show you. So I'll just cut a little bit of this off and I'll show you. So you can see that there are lines or stripes going up and down, and when I stretch it, it pulls away, or it pulls the stripes open, or the creases, I should say creases. So that's what you want. You want to be focusing on the creases in the crepe paper. So when I wrap the stem in green, I want to be able to stretch out the crepe paper as I'm wrapping it around, which means that I'll need to cut myself a section off the bottom so that I can stretch outwards. If I cut myself a strip like this, you won't be able to stretch that. So as I go around, you won't be able to stretch that if I cut it that way. But if I cut the bottom like I did just before, you'll actually be able to stretch the crepe paper. So there's a hot tip. And again, just applying some glue all the way around, because we're going to start putting the green crepe paper, again overlapping the leaves first, and then rolling our way up, or moving slowly upwards, and just put dabs of hot glue as you go. You don't want too much glue, because you don't want it to seep through any of the leaves. You want all the glue to be completely hidden. So just take good care, especially when you're using a hot glue gun. Sometimes you get like the little spider web of glue, so you dab it, and then if you don't wipe the nozzle of the hot glue on your surface and you just push the glue out and then move it away, it creates this little spider web of hot glue, and you can see it everywhere. So I always put the glue and dab it, or give it a little tap, so that it completely cuts off the glue off the tip before I move the hot glue gun away. There's a hot tip. So yeah, because you want it to be professional, right? You don't want little strains and strands of hot glue all over the place, because that's just going to detract from your flower. After you've worked so hard to make it, you want to try to have the best product. So now you can see that I'm going moving my way down, I'm happy to put the flower the right side up and start applying glue and rolling down. Nice and tight. And this is why you need to cut it in this way, so that as you're rolling it, you're pulling the crepe paper, and it's actually stretching out the crepe paper. And then when you get to the bottom, I usually just cut, stretch, dab a bit of hot glue, and just roll it. And then any little tiny excess I'll cut. So now with this, what I'll do is I'll put it into a larger PVC pipe that's been pre-molded into a curve shape and placed into the base of like the base that I was talking about before. I'll show you some videos of how I've done it in the past so that you've got a bit of an idea of what I'm talking about. But this will basically go into a bigger PVC pipe. You can keep it like that for a photo shoot. You can put it in a vase. I usually, when I make crepe paper flowers, before I take it to where it's supposed to go, I usually keep them in vases because I don't want them flat on the ground, like on the table, so that it stuffs around with the petals too much, if that makes sense. I just want it nice and open and even so it can breathe and not be squished. So I'm going to go ahead, make sure that I'm happy with all the petals, stretch out the bottoms, and then that's basically it. So really that wasn't too hard, was it? It was basically just cutting a couple of petals out, wrapping it around some sort of a ball. You've got your petals there that you slowly overlap and wrap around. You've got your little leaves that go on the bottom to give you a professional finish on the bottom. And if you want it to look like a finished flower, if you didn't have this, it wouldn't be the same. So yeah, these are actually not that hard to make. They're very impressive. And yeah, they're just so beautiful. Do it in any color that you want. The only advice I would have is buy crepe paper that is thick, that you can stretch and maneuver and manipulate. If you get crepe paper that doesn't have all of these creases in it, you'll find it really difficult to even be able to stretch it out and manipulate the petals to create this kind of movement. It will be just rigid, straight petals. So you really want to be looking for this kind of stuff. You can make giant flowers the length of this. So you could have a petal this long, but in that case, I would recommend you having 2 floral wires glued inside the petal so that it gives it a bit more support and stability as you're coming around. Because if you don't do that, the bottom petal will just completely flop down. So you want to be able to have that structure and hold if you were doing it this big. I've done flowers this big in the past. I might be able to find a video. I'll see what I can add at the end of the video. But yeah, so if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe, please do. I usually like to do a lot of crafting, a lot of cooking, a lot of gardening, all the things that I love. So it would be great to hear from you. If you've got comments or anything like that, I'd love to have a chat. But yeah, how easy was that? Wasn't hard at all. Yeah, enjoy. Hopefully you guys can give it a try and surprise your family. And yeah, fun little project. Bye guys.